What if I told you the golden age of retiring abroad is over? That countries once begging for your dollars are now slamming the doors shut? In 2025, the dream of sipping wine in Provence, relaxing in a Japanese ryokan, or enjoying Australia's sunny coasts is evaporating before our eyes. These nations, once magnets for foreign retirees, are suddenly banning or severely restricting retirement visas. And it's not just a policy tweak, it's a global reset. Why? Because housing bubbles are bursting, nationalist politics are rising, and social services are straining. From Europe to Asia to the Pacific, governments are drawing the line. And if you're planning to retire overseas, you need to know where you're no longer welcome before it's too late. The reasons? Surging housing prices, economic nationalism, and an increasingly hostile environment for outsiders. So grab your passport and prepare to be shocked. These are the 10 countries banning foreign retirees in 2025. Number 5. Germany. For decades, Germany was a sleeper hit for foreign retirees. With its world-class healthcare, efficient public services, and a quiet countryside that felt pulled from a postcard, it was a hidden gem for American and European retirees alike. But in 2024, that dream came to a screeching halt. Germany suspended all new elective residency applications for non-EU retirees, citing rising demographic pressures and the growing strain on its pension and healthcare systems. The numbers are staggering. Non-EU retiree applications dropped by a jaw-dropping 70% in just 1 year. This move wasn't made in isolation. Germany's aging population, one of the oldest in the world, now faces a shrinking workforce and rising dependency ratio. The German Federal Statistical Office estimates that by 2035, over a third of the population will be 65 or older. Combine that with a healthcare system already under pressure and public pensions stretched thin, and it becomes clear why the government acted. But was the solution really to slam the door on foreign retirees who often bring wealth and self-sufficiency? The economic context is both ironic and revealing. With a 2023 GDP of around $4.5 trillion and stable inflation hovering at 2.2%, Germany remains one of Europe's strongest economies. Yet its leadership is doubling down on social spending for locals while quietly cutting off those looking to contribute without burdening the state. The retirement visas that once served as a pathway for Americans and Brits to enjoy Bavaria's wine regions or Berlin's rich culture have become nearly impossible to secure. Is this pragmatism or protectionism masked as policy? And here's the kicker, this shift has sent ripples across the entire EU. If Germany, a country built on globalization and economic openness, is retreating into retirement isolationism, what message does that send to the rest of Europe? Is this the beginning of a continental crackdown on aging foreigners with dreams of a European escape? What comes next will shock you. Number 4. France. France, the land of wine, romance, and long lazy days in Provence, has long captured the imagination of retirees. But in 2025, that fantasy turned into a bureaucratic nightmare. The French government officially scrapped all retirement visa pathways for non-European foreigners, no matter how romantic their dreams. What triggered this radical shift? A combination of soaring energy costs, housing crises in cities like Paris, and mounting pressure on France's generous welfare programs. Let's talk numbers. Property prices in Paris have surged by 35% since 2010, and energy prices across France have skyrocketed in the past 2 years, making everyday life increasingly unaffordable, even for locals. French policymakers argue that the influx of foreign retirees was adding pressure to limited housing stock and straining municipal budgets already struggling under inflation. The move wasn't subtle, it was a full-stop rejection of non-EU retirees, no exceptions. And don't be fooled by France's charm. The reality is, this is a high-tax, high-cost society. Top earners often pay over 45% in income tax, and retirees, though not necessarily high earners, were seen as taking up valuable public space and services. Instead of rewarding people who bring their pensions and pay their way, France chose to close the gates. If you were dreaming of a retirement filled with croissants and cobblestone walks along the Seine, well, you might need to rethink your plans. But what makes France's move so explosive is the message it sends to foreign retirees around the globe: you're not welcome, not anymore. And that's not just a French sentiment. It's rapidly becoming the European norm. If even the so-called cultural heart of the continent is turning its back, what's left for those hoping to age with grace abroad? Number 3, United Kingdom. You might have expected the United Kingdom to uphold its long-standing openness to foreign retirees, especially those from the US, Commonwealth countries, or Europe. But post-Brexit, Britain had other plans. In 2024, new reforms were rolled out that practically obliterated retirement visa options for foreigners unless they could meet highly restrictive investment criteria. The result? A 70% drop in non-citizen retirement visa approvals compared to 2023. The golden years in the green English countryside? Gone. This is more than just paperwork, this is ideology. The UK is rebranding itself as a fortress of economic nationalism. With a GDP of $3.1 trillion and a property market that's been overheating for more than a decade, Britain is feeling the pressure. London home prices have ballooned by 40% since 2010, and regional markets aren't far behind. The government's message is blunt: we can't house our own, so we're not housing you. And if you think having a fat pension will save you, think again. The only foreigners allowed through the door now are those bringing substantial investments or specialized business ventures. Retirees hoping to simply settle in and enjoy the countryside? Excluded. And even for those who somehow qualify, the bureaucracy is thick, the fees are sky high, and the political winds are far from friendly. The tragedy here isn't just logistical, it's emotional. For generations, Americans and Europeans have seen the UK as a second home, a land of shared language and culture. But 2025 marks the end of that era. Brexit wasn't just a political divorce, it was a cultural one too. And now, the elderly are paying the price. Number 2, Singapore. They had always played by its own rules. A meticulously clean, ruthlessly efficient city-state, it's long been admired, but rarely easy to access. And if you were hoping to spend your golden years sipping tea in a high-rise overlooking Marina Bay, think again. Singapore has never offered a true retirement visa, and in 2025, it made things even clearer: foreign retirees are not welcome, regardless of wealth or background. With a GDP of $400 billion and one of the highest per capita incomes in the world, Singapore isn't short on cash. But it is short on space, both literally and politically. Land is scarce, property prices are sky high, and the population is tightly managed. So the government doubled down on its immigration priorities: highly skilled professionals and investors only. Even high net worth retirees found themselves excluded from long-term stays unless tied to family or corporate sponsorship. Singapore's cost of living ranks among the highest globally, and real estate prices reflect that exclusivity. A modest apartment in the city can cost upwards of $1 million, and land use is so tightly regulated that even locals struggle to find affordable housing. In this environment, retirees are seen not as contributors, but as potential burdens. So the message is crystal clear: if you're not actively building Singapore's future, you're not part of it. The island nation is crafting a forward-looking identity rooted in economic productivity, not leisure. And that means retirees, no matter how self-sufficient or well-off, are being systematically excluded. Is this the future of urban immigration? And if so, where can foreign retirees go next? Number 1, United Arab Emirates UAE. And now, at the very top of the list, the United Arab Emirates, a former retirement magnet that just pulled the plug. The UAE, particularly Dubai, once promised tax-free income, luxury living, and sun-soaked retirement dreams. But in 2025, all that changed. The country phased out its retirement visa program for most foreigners, now requiring annual incomes above $150,000 in special sector affiliations. That's not retirement, it's a corporate contract. The result? A staggering 60% drop in retirement visa inquiries. This pivot is part of a larger strategic shift. The UAE's economy, valued at $540 billion, has diversified rapidly beyond oil, focusing on tech, finance, and real estate. But the leadership is recalibrating its expat population, favoring those who actively contribute to national development. Retirees, once welcomed for their wealth, are now sidelined unless they fit into high-demand niches. Ironically, this policy change comes despite relatively stable inflation around 2.9% and a strong economy.
But rising costs in places like Dubai and Abu Dhabi, along with geopolitical pressures and population growth, are driving a more exclusive immigration agenda.
The message? The UAE no longer wants passive income earners. They want innovators, not retirees. And this raises an uncomfortable question: if even the UAE, once a paradise for American and British retirees, is turning them away, what country will take them in? Have we reached the end of global retirement migration? Or is this just a temporary freeze in a warming global economy? One thing's for sure, your retirement plans just got a lot more complicated. There was a time when retiring abroad meant peace, palm trees, and affordable living. But in 2025, that era is rapidly coming to a close. From the vineyards of France to the skyscrapers of Singapore, countries are closing their gates. Not just to migrants or tourists, but to the very people who built wealth, paid their dues, and just want a safe place to rest. What began as isolated policy tweaks has now become a global trend: the rise of retirement nationalism. The reasons are clear: housing shortages, social welfare pressures, political populism, and nationalistic rhetoric. But the consequences? Devastating. Tens of thousands of would-be retirees are now in limbo, their dream destinations blacklisting them not because they're unworthy, but because they're foreign. So what comes next? Will Latin America or Southeast Asia become the new retirement frontier? Or will even they start to follow the same pattern of exclusion and protectionism? And most importantly, where will you go when it's time to clock out? Because if these 10 countries are the warning signs, then the global retirement landscape isn't just changing, it's collapsing. Choose your future wisely. Because the world's best destinations may no longer want you.